The 1926 wheat penny is exceptionally hard to find in high grades, making it one of the key semi-keys of the entire Lincoln series. Not all 1926 pennies are worth more than a cent, but a perfectly preserved, high-grade example from the San Francisco Mint, especially with original red luster, is so rare that it can fetch hundreds of thousands to over $1 million at auction. The 1926 penny was minted in fewer numbers, and most entered circulation immediately. Harsh use and poor storage meant that almost none were saved in pristine condition. Fewer than 10 examples exist in MS65 red gem mint state. Only a handful are known in MS66 red, the highest grade ever assigned. Collectors pay astronomical prices for these coins, often battling in elite auctions for a chance to own one. Lincoln cents are copper, and copper oxidizes over time. Most common, oxidized copper color. Some original mint color remains. A 1926 penny in full red is incredibly rare. One MS66 red 1926 penny was privately sold for over $150,000, and numismatists believe the right beer would pay over $1 million. For a flawless example, collectors aiming for a complete set of Lincoln wheat cents must have the 1926. Thus, its scarcity in high grades places it among the top 10 key dates, the most difficult coins to complete in red mint state. Its historical placement between World War I and the Great Depression adds to its mystique, while the 1926 wheat penny is valuable in pristine condition. Even more excitement surrounds Rarest, such as double die obverse, though extremely rare for this date. Die cracks and cuds. Repunch mint marks RPM. Each of these can enhance the value, especially when authenticated by PCGS or NGC. Over the decades, the most pristine 1926 cents have made headlines. Private collectors have reportedly offered $750,000 or more for MS66 candidates. Experts believe if a perfect MS67 RD example were found and certified, it could break $1 million. Even more common grades like BF Very Fine or XF Extra Fine command $30 to $100, and circulated examples can range from $500 to $10,000, depending on the color and grade. With values this high, authentication is critical. Top-tier coins should be graded. 1-cent coin of that era, known as the Lincoln wheat cent, bore the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln on the obverse, a design first introduced in 1909 to mark the centennial of Lincoln's birth. It was the first U.S. coin to feature a real person, an idea that once sparked debate, but eventually became a lasting tradition. Designed by Victor David Brenner, the Lincoln cent was instantly iconic. On the reverse, two simple wheat ears curved gracefully along the edges, framing the denomination 1 cent and the country's name, United States of America. Above, the motto E Pluribus Unum reminded Americans of their unity through diversity. In 1953, 3 mints struck the wheat penny: Philadelphia no mint mark, Denver marked with a D, and San Francisco marked with an S. Combined, they produced hundreds of millions of pennies. At first glance, there was nothing rare about a 1953 Lincoln cent, but rarity, as collectors know, hides in the details. Most 1953 pennies were spent and forgotten, used to buy soda, candy, newspapers, and gasoline, but a very small number were set aside, tucked into mint rolls, preserved in collections, or simply lost and never circulated. These few coins remained untouched by time, retaining their original mint red luster, sharp details, and near-perfect surfaces. It is these specimens, those graded mint state 67 red MS67 RD, or higher, that have reached jaw-dropping prices in auctions. In some cases, a 1953 wheat penny in pristine condition, with exceptional strike quality and no blemishes, has sold for as much as $20,000. The value lies in the condition, and in the fierce competition among collectors to own the best of the best. The grading scale used by professionals like PCGS Professional Coin Grading Service and NGC Numismatic Guarantee Corporation ranges from 1 to 70. A coin graded MS67 or MS68 means it is nearly flawless under magnification. Combine that grade with a full red color designation, indicating the copper coin has retained its original brilliant red tone from the day it was struck, and you have a numismatic masterpiece. But condition isn't the only path to high value. Some 1953 wheat pennies feature errors and varieties, accidental imperfections, created during the minting process. These include double die. The 1953 Liberty wheat penny is one such time capsule. It represents the post-war optimism, economic expansion, and industrial precision of early 1950s America. This was a time when pennies were more than just change. They were tangible representations of national values. The image of Abraham Lincoln reminded citizens of unity, sacrifice, and leadership. The wheat on the reverse spoke of labor, agriculture, and abundance. The materials used to create the 1953 penny reflected both stability and innovation. After experiments during World War II with alternative metals, such as steel in 1943 and recycled shell casings, in 1944-46, the U.S. Mint had returned to using standard bronze alloy 95%, copper and 5% tin and zinc. These pennies were struck with uniformity and care, yet the mythic eagle reverse of the past had been replaced by a series of ever-changing designs under the America the Beautiful ATB Quarters program, which began in 2010 and continued until 2021. The front the obverse still featured the classic image of George Washington, originally designed by John Flanagan in 1932, but the reverse now changed, -1 times a year, celebrating national parks and historic sites from every state and territory. Each year, collectors anticipated which designs would be released, and 2015 did not disappoint. In 2015, 5 different reverse designs were released. Homestead National Monument of America. Each featured a unique piece of American scenery or history, and while all were minted in large numbers, minting errors, exceptional condition, and low mintage varieties have turned some of these coins into serious collector's items. The 2015 quarters were minted at the usual locations. While hundreds of millions were struck for general circulation, not all coins were created equal. The difference between a 25-cent coin and a $5,000 rarity lies in a few key factors. Let's explore the different ways a 2015 Liberty Quarter can turn into a modern-day gold mine. Mistakes made during the minting process are rare but highly collectible. In 2015, several error types were recorded. Double die obverse DDO doubling on the words "Liberty in God We Trust" or the date 2015. Some DDOs have fetched $1,000, $3,000, depending on clarity. Struck on wrong planchet. Some quarters were mistakenly struck on plankets meant for nickels, dimes, or foreign coins. These errors can be worth $3,000, $5,000 or more. Off-center strikes. Quarters that are significantly off-center, especially over 50% with visible dates and mint marks, are worth $500, $1,500. Die breaks and cuts. Raised blobs of metal caused by broken dies, especially if they cover important parts of the design. Clipped plankets. Quarters missing a curved portion of the rim due to a cutting error. Well-defined clips can command $300, $800. The San Francisco Mint does not issue coins for circulation, but they do strike-proof and uncirculated collector-only versions. 1978 Liberty Nickel, a humble coin with hidden value, a rare survivor of an era few thought to preserve. The design of the 1978 Liberty Nickel had remained virtually unchanged since its debut in 1938. The obverse features a dignified profile of Thomas Jefferson, facing left, along the rim, "In God We Trust," with Liberty and the date 1978 on the right side, just below the year. A small mint mark, either D for Denver or no mark for Philadelphia. On the reverse, Jefferson's home, Monticello, stands proud. Above it, E Pluribus Unum, the national motto. Below, United States of America and the denomination, 5 cents. It was simple, it was strong, and it hid secrets in its details. In 1978, over 768 million Jefferson nickels were struck. All accounts, this was a high-production year. But here's the truth. The vast majority were weakly struck, circulated into the ground, or simply discarded. Finding a 1978 nickel in perfect untouched condition, especially one with sharp detail, is a challenge even experienced collectors struggle with. And that's exactly why the few that do survive are incredibly valuable. The 1978 Liberty 5-cent coin was made from a 75% copper and 25% nickel alloy, the standard composition for nickels since the end of World War II. It weighs 5 grams, measures 21.2 millimeters in diameter, and has a plain edge. But don't let the common alloy fool you. These nickels, when struck properly and preserved, display rich luster, crisp detail, and collector appeal that goes far beyond their metallic value. Ask any Jefferson nickel collector about full steps, and you'll hear the same thing. It's the ultimate grading goal. On the reverse of the coin, at the base of Monticello, A series of 5 or 6 small horizontal lines represent the building steps. On most nickels, these steps are worn, faded, or not fully struck, but if those steps appear complete and uninterrupted, the coin earns the coveted full steps FS designation. Combine this with a high grade, such as MS66 or MS67, and you have a potential 5-cent coin worth thousands. Collectors look for errors and oddities, and the 1978 nickel does not disappoint. Some known valuable mint errors include off-center strikes, misaligned coins with part of the design missing. The late 1970s weren't glamorous for coin collectors. Most of the attention was on silver coins. Pre-1965 issues, or older wheat pennies, very few collectors saved nickels from 1970. Jefferson nickel's design remained largely unchanged from 1938 to 2003, making the 1988 issue part of the classic era of American nickels. In 1988, the United States was wrapping up Ronald Reagan's presidency, a period marked by economic growth, tax reform, and Cold War diplomacy. The U.S. Mint operated under this stable but fast-moving climate, producing billions of coins annually. The Denver D and Philadelphia P mints were both producing enormous quantities of coins in 1988, and the Jefferson nickel was one of the most widely used denominations. Despite inflation, the nickel retained functional value used in vending machines, payphones, and public transit. By the late 1980s, the mint was facing several technical and logistical challenges. Overused dies due to the high-volume minting process, striking pressure inconsistencies, especially for Monticello steps, lack of clarity in design details, which later became a focus in grading standards. Because of these factors, most 1988 nickels were poorly struck, especially from the Philadelphia Mint. That's why finding a 1988 P or 1988 D nickel with full steps FS and in mint state 67 or above is extremely rare, making such coins worth thousands. Today, during the late 1980s, the professionalization of coin grading changed how modern coins like the Jefferson nickel gained new attention as collectors realized that sharp details and perfect preservation were exceptionally scarce, even for recent coins. For the 1988 5-cent coin, the spotlight on full steps was growing. A coin had to show 5 or 6 fully separated steps on Monticello to earn the FS designation. Only a tiny fraction of 1988 nickels qualified, especially from Philadelphia. No major official varieties were announced for 1988, but collectors and researchers have since identified die cracks, especially around Jefferson's collar or the Monticello dome. Many of these flawed coins were tossed into circulation unnoticed, but today, they're considered rare. Mint errors worth hundreds to thousands depending on the severity and grade, with a combined total of over 1.18 billion nickels. It's easy to think the 1988 coin is common, and it is. In Warren the story of the 1937 Liberty wheat penny, a coin that seems humble on the surface but, in certain rare conditions, can be worth thousands of US dollars. Let's uncover the history, rarity, and value of this Depression-era survivor. The 1937 penny is part of the Lincoln Wheat Cent series, first introduced in 1909. To commemorate the 100th birthday of President Abraham Lincoln. The design was created by Victor David Brenner, marking the first time a real historical figure appeared on a U.S. coin. The obverse features Lincoln's right-facing profile, with the words "In God We Trust" above, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 1937 to the right. The reverse showcases two stalks of wheat framing the inscriptions, 1 cent and United States of America, with E pluribus unum across the top. This simple yet bold design captured the ideals of American resilience and prosperity in an age of hardship. Most 1937 wheat pennies found in circulation today are worth 3 to 10 cents due to age and wear, but coins in uncirculated condition, especially those graded MS65 or higher, can fetch $150 to $1,500 or more, depending on the mint mark and rarity. A 1937 D or 1937 S penny in MS67, red condition, bright red luster with no wear, can sell for $3,000 to $6,000, verified by grading services like PCGS or NGC. 1937 D Lincoln Cent MS67, red, sold for $6,000 at a major U.S. coin auction. 1937 S MS67 red fetched $3,800, thanks to its immaculate luster and strike. Even a Philadelphia 1937 penny graded MS66 red can command $1,200 to $1,800, especially with strong eye appeal. As the grade increases and the red color remains vibrant, so does the value. Lincoln wheat pennies are graded not only by condition, but also normal circulated coins, least valuable transitional tone with some mint luster, full original mint color most valuable. 1937 pennies with full red designation are very scarce in higher grades due to oxidation over decades. This makes MS66 and MS67 red coins especially rare and desirable, often selling for thousands. Some 1937 wheat pennies are even more valuable due to minting, double die obverse, slight but visible, doubling on lettering or Lincoln's features, off-center strikes, coins struck away from center values, range from $100 to $1,000 plus, die cracks and cuds in coins that were essential for everyday survival. A single cent in 1937 had actual purchasing power. It could buy a stick of gum, a newspaper, or contribute to a child's school lunch. The wheat penny, with its simple agricultural motif, became a symbol of the working class. Its two wheat ears on the reverse represented abundance, growth, and the promise of renewal, all things desperately hoped for during a time of nationwide hardship. Abraham Lincoln had appeared on the penny since 1909, the centennial of his birth. He was the first real person ever depicted on a circulating U.S. coin. Prior to that, coinage usually featured idealized representations of liberty. Lincoln was chosen not only because of his role in preserving the Union, but also because he embodied honesty, resilience, and dignity, qualities that resonated deeply with Americans during both the Civil War and the Great Depression. His portrait on the penny was designed by Victor David Brenner, a Lithuanian immigrant whose initials VDB were originally featured prominently on the coin before being removed due to controversy. They were restored later, subtly, at the base of Lincoln's shoulder. By 1937, the Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco mints were all active in producing Lincoln cents. Philadelphia was the main mint, striking over 309 million coins without any mint mark. Denver D and San Francisco S struck fewer pennies, but collectors now know that coins from these branches, especially in high grades, are more scarce and often more valuable. The production methods of the time used steel coin dies that wore down quickly. Quality control standards were not as rigorous as they are today. As a result, most 1937 pennies were unevenly struck, poorly centered, or showed fading detail, which is why well-struck examples in pristine condition are incredibly rare today. It's important to understand that few people in 1937 had the luxury of saving coins. The country was still suffering from the Depression. Every cent was needed for rent, food, or work supplies. Coin collecting was not a widespread hobby among working families. Only a handful of collectors or lucky children may have kept a few examples untouched. That scarcity of preserved coins is why mint state 1937 pennies with original red luster are so valuable today. They represent a moment in time when almost no one had the means or foresight to save them. Interestingly, 1930 was first minted in 1964, less than a year after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. The nation was grieving, and Congress quickly authorized a new coin to honor the fallen president. The half-dollar denomination was chosen because it was one of the most prestigious and visible coins in circulation. The coin was designed by Gilroy Roberts, obverse front and Frank Gasparo reverse back. The obverse features a left-facing bust of John F. Kennedy, while the reverse displays the presidential seal, a heraldic eagle clutching arrows and an olive branch, symbolizing war and peace. Initially, the 1960 for Kennedy half-dollar was made of 90% silver, but from 1965 to 1970, it was reduced to 40% silver. By 1971, due to rising silver prices, the U.S. Mint switched entirely to copper-nickel-clad composition, which includes the 1990 coin. The 1990 Kennedy half-dollar was struck to mints. There was also a San Francisco mint-proof version made for collectors, bearing an S mint mark. Coin specifications: diameter 30.6 millimeters, weight 11.34 grams, composition 75% copper, 25% nickel over a pure copper carriage. Read Gilroy Roberts obverse, Frank Gasparo reverse. In 1990, the Kennedy half-dollar was still minted for general circulation, although its everyday use was already in decline. Fewer people used half-dollars in transactions, and more coins were sitting in banks and Federal Reserve vaults than changing hands. In the early 1990s, the U.S. economy was transitioning. Credit cards and electronic payments were becoming more popular. However, the Kennedy half-dollar remained a symbol of American heritage and patriotism, representing a charismatic leader who symbolized hope and youth in American politics. The 1990s proof coins were minted in San Francisco and sold directly to collectors. These proofs were specially struck using polished dies and blanks to ensure a mirror-like finish. These coins remain popular among collectors today. Despite its declining circulation, the 1990 Kennedy half-dollar remains a popular coin in the world of numismatics. It serves as an accessible collector's item for beginners and a patriotic reminder of JFK's impact on American history. John F. Kennedy's brief presidency left an enduring legacy. His image on the half-dollar became a symbol of hope, courage, and a forward-looking nation. The 1990 coin carries that torch forward. While not officially a commemorative issue, each Kennedy half-dollar